Hello everyone, welcome back to another interesting English literature session. I hope you are ready with the GC Ordinary Level Anthology. Today I wish to discuss one of the poems in the poetry section. Two's Company by Raymond Wilson. Two's Company is a poem that we are going to discuss today, and the poet is Raymond Wilson. If you look at the screen, you can see the picture of the poet. What do you know about this poet, Raymond Wilson? Raymond Wilson is a well-known author from New Kensington, Pennsylvania. You should understand that he is a professor of history and the former chair of the Department of History at Hayes University, Kansas. Raymond Wilson is a member of several professional organizations and has been accorded numerous honors and awards. In 2002, he received the Fort Hayes State University Pilot Award for Outstanding Teaching. Well, let's read the poem Two's Company. Please pay attention to the topic, Two's Company. The topic Two's Company seems to refer to two people. Well, we are going to find what does this topic or the subject refer to. And at the same time, the opening line, if you see, it says, the sad story of a man who didn't believe in ghosts. Well, I hope you will get a rough understanding at once when you read it. Therefore, look at the first line. They said the house was haunted, but he laughed at them and said, "Tut, tut, I've never heard such tittle-tattle as ghosts that groan and chains that rattle. And just to prove I am in the right, please leave me here to spend the night." When you look at this stanza, you can see there is a boy, maybe a boy, because now you can see the incident or the background behind. The particular man or the person, young boy, seems that he doesn't believe in ghosts. They said the house was haunted. Normally, who speaks about these ghost stories? Especially young ones, maybe. And this particular person has challenged their idea. He laughed at them and said, "Tut, tut, I've never heard such tittle-tattle." He was not familiar with such ghosts. And he wants to stay at night alone in a haunted house. That's why the man has told, and just to prove I am in the right. He was very confident, he was overconfident, and he wanted his colleagues or the friends to understand that he is correct, the man is correct. So he says, "Please leave me here to spend the night." He is going to spend the night in a haunted house. But the opening line says, the sad story of a man who didn't believe in ghosts. You will get to know very confidently the man says, and laughed at, he is going to be at a haunted house? Well, we'll see the next line. They left him just as dusk was falling. Can you understand the story? Very early evening. What happened? They left him. This person who challenged about ghosts and he wanted to be alone at a haunted house was going to spend the night alone. Therefore, his friends left him. And you can see the background with a hunchback moon and screech owls calling. That sentence, that line implies the background. You can visualize a haunted background. Well, when you read further, you will get to know. But what is that? Outside, it seemed as if chains rattled, someone screamed. A frightened situation. Let's move on to the other lines. Come, come, it's merely nerves. He's certain. But just the same, he draws the curtain. You can see his actions. He thought it's because of his nervousness, but he was certain. Just the same, he draws the curtain. You can identify his inner feelings, his emotions. Well, the stroke of 12, but there's no clock. A very confident person, this man has challenged and staying at a haunted house, and he heard the stroke of 12, but there's no clock. Can you identify? The poet has gradually developed a background where the ghost could appear. If you look at the next stanza, he shuts the door and turns the lock. The person who challenged that there aren't ghosts and that he can stay alone at a haunted place now secretly shuts the door and turns the lock. Why? Can you understand his mentality? He is, though he utters words, he is actually scared. Within brackets you get, of course, he knows that no one's there. But no harm's done by taking care. His guilty consciousness. He thinks nobody is there, but it's better to take care. Someone's outside, the silly joker. So when he heard unwanted sounds, he thinks he may as well pick up the poker. I will explain certain words later. Please go through the lines. The next set of lines are also important. That noise again. He checks the doors, shutters the windows, makes a pause to seek the safest place to hide. The cupboard's strong. He creeps inside. Can you observe this situation? Can you visualize this situation? That noise again. And he checks those doors. He checks the doors. Shutters the windows. Makes a pause. That means he stopped for a while. Why? To find the safest place to hide. You can see the superlative. Not just a safe place. The safest place to hide. and within brackets you get the cupboard strong. Now what is he going to do? He creeps inside. Well, look at the last stanza. Not that there is anything to fear, he tells himself. Now he is very sure nobody is there to make him frightened. He thinks not that there's anything to fear. No need to be scared. No need to be frightened. He utters that to himself. When at his ear a voice breathless softly, "How do you do?" "I am a ghost. Pray, who are you?" By Raymond Wilson. Now you can see the ironical situation here. The man wanted to hide himself inside a cupboard, the safest place in the area, the safest place in the haunted house. But when he crept inside the cupboard, a voice breathless softly says, "How do you do? I'm a ghost. Pray, who are you?" You can imagine this situation. At the beginning, he challenged his friends. He said he wanted to stay alone at a haunted house. Finally, he crept inside a cupboard. And there you get to know the particular ghost. And that particular ghost says, "How do you do?" A friendly conversation. Well, shall we do an activity? This activity will help you to clear certain words. Therefore, please pay attention to the screen. Activity 1. Filling the blanks with suitable words or phrases given in the poem. Number 1. A place with a ghost. Did you find? I'm going to help you with the answer. Hope you got it correct. Haunted. Remember children, haunted refers to a place with a ghost. An expression of disapproval. Can you find a suitable word? Tut tut. Tut tut refers to an expression of disapproval. Well, the third question is gossip, foolish chat, meaningless things. Can you find the relevant answer? Tittle tattle. Tittle tattle refers to gossip or foolish chat or meaningless things. Hope these words will help you to understand this poem very clearly. Therefore, look at the fourth question. Short, sharp, knocking sound. Maybe of a metal chain. Short, sharp, knocking sound is rattle here. According to the poem, rattle refers to short, sharp, knocking sound of a metal chain. I hope you can write the answer, correct answer for this. The fifth one, evening that is getting dark. Dusk. Actually, dusk refers to the early evening or before getting dark. Well, the sixth one, please pay attention to a half of the moon in a curved shape that gives less light. It's not a full moon. What is the answer? A hunchback moon. Can the moon hunchback? We will discuss later. Keep the meaning in your memory now. hunchback moon refers to a half of the moon in a curved shape that gives less light. Well, the seventh one, owls who has harsh, shrill cry. And these owls imply a warn of a bad happening. Owls who has harsh, shrill cry. It's not a pleasant cry. How do you call them? Screech owls. Remember children, screech owls refer to owls who have harsh, shrill cry. Owls who create or make, owls who make harsh, shrill cry, and that implies a warn of a bad happening. Well, goes slowly in. Can you find the answer? Creeps inside. I think you can remember. The man crept inside a cupboard. He crept inside a cupboard. Goes slowly in can be referred to creeps inside. The ninth question is important. It's a new word for you, iron rod. I will help you with the answer, poker. Well, let's move on to another different type of questions. In this set of questions, you are going to find the suitable words or phrases in the poem to match the images. Can you see? Look at the screen carefully. The stroke of 12. But in this context, in this two's company, there wasn't a clock. The stroke of 12 refers to this, the sound, and you can relate, but here in this story, in this context, you don't get a clock. Well, if you look at the next picture, hope you can guess the answer. Did you get that answer? Did you find the answer? Poker. Poker. It's an iron rod. Well, can you see the owl? Can you find the relevant line? Very good. With a hunchback moon, this hunchback moon is not in the picture, and screech owls calling is the relevant line. Shall we discuss another question? How many people are in the poem according to the title? Can you guess? The title Two's Company mentions that there are two in the poem. As it is a company, the word company refers to, according to this two, it may be two people's company. But we will discuss some other questions and discuss in detail important facts embedded in the poem. Well, let's pay attention to the literary techniques highlighted in this poem. The very first technique that we can pay attention is the diction. What do you mean by diction? Choice of words. And you can see it's the simple spoken language. Further, you can see it's a narration. I will explain that word later, but you better keep that in mind now at this moment. Diction is a simple spoken language. Further, when you talk about the choice of words, you can see quick in movement. Because of the rhyming couplets, you get that, and end stopped lines. Well, another technique or a literary device used by the poet is personification. Can you find an example for that? Very good. Hunchback moon refers to a personified moon. Normally, moon cannot hunch back. This hunchback refers to a personified moon. There is another example that you can find. Screech owls calling. Can owls call? So you can see the owls are also personified. Another important technique is imagery. You can visualize, you can imagine a lot of things when you read this Two's Company. Screech owls calling, you can visualize. Remember, that's come under personification also. There is another one, hunchback moon. When you look at the sky, if it is not a full moon, if it is in a curved shape, it's hunchback moon. There also you can clearly visualize. Another technique used by the poet is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. Can you find an example? Rattle. Why do we take this as an example? Because rattle makes a creepy sound effect. Remember, when you write your answers, you have to quote, because these words do not belong to us. We have to quote them. In your answers, you have to quote, because straight away these words belong to the poet. Well, another technique we can discuss is irony. Can you think of a better answer for this? Very good. Title itself is very ironical. Two's Company. If you read this poem very carefully, you can see the man doesn't expect a ghost as company. Actually, the man doesn't expect a ghost as company. And the subtitle is ironically misleading the reader to read a sad story. Because you can see you're about to, the opening lines just after the title directs you to read a sad story. But at the end you will find a humorous story where a ghost speaks in a very dear way. How do you do? So it's ironical. And the other thing, on the other hand, the man did not believe in ghosts. After all, he had to talk to a ghost in a cupboard. Both were in the cupboard. How ironical the situation is. Well, shall we look at the tone? What do you think about the tone of the poem? Very good. It's very funny. Humorous. It evokes lot of humor. It creates, the tone creates lot of humor. And if we focus on to the rhyme and the rhyming words, you can see there is a regular rhyme and rhyming words at the end of each line, and that further develops this funny effect. I told you this poem is a very humorous one. So this regular rhyme and these rhyming words have contributed a lot to bring out the theme. The humor in the poem is developed through this regular pattern of rhyming words and the rhythm also. If you look at the screen, you can see tattle, rattle, rhyming couplets. Right, night, falling, calling, clock, lock, tattle, rattle, right, night, falling, calling, clock, lock. All these are rhyming words, and these words have contributed a lot to bring out the theme humor very effectively. Another literary technique that we can focus is alliteration and asanas. Alliteration and assonance are frequently used. If you see tittle, tattle, tut, tut, ghosts that groan. All these words refer to alliteration and assonance. I prefer you to focus onto the screen and this alliteration. That alliteration refers to the repetition of initial consonant sounds. So, tittle, tattle, clock, lock are ideal examples. Another technique deployed by the poet should be contrast. Why do we say the contrast is used effectively in this poem? Because the words and the reactions of the man is contrasting. The impression created about the man in initial lines changes at the end, and that brings laughter. You can see the contrast at the beginning. At the beginning, the young man is challenging his friends. He wants to be isolated in a haunted house. But with the time, after 12 o'clock, but there wasn't a clock at that place, what happened? He just crept inside a cupboard. Finally, he had to talk. Actually, he had to listen to the ghost. Both were inside the cupboard. What do you think? After all, the one who challenged the ghost had met the ghost. It's contrast. So, the poet had effectively used contrast, and that is one of the important techniques in this poem. Because a very confident man changes into a coward. I told you, he thought the cupboard is strong. That's why he creeps inside. A very confident man changes into a cupboard. Both are in the cupboard. Well, let's look at another question. The language is used to bring the comical effect in the poem. Justify. The language you find in this poem creates comical effect in the poem, humorous effect in the poem. Can you support your answer? I am going to help you with some facts. When you look at the language, you can see language has a rhythmic flow and rhyme. And you have observed clearly, now you can identify the rhyming couplets at the end of all the lines. Almost all the lines you get at the end, you get some rhyming couplets. Therefore, the language is used in a way to create humor or a comical effect. You can see the rhythmic flow and the rhyme. Another fact that you can point out is comical blending of identical sounds, alliterations. For example, tittle tattle, clock, lock can be given. To support the same question, you can think of the main character. The main character is introduced with some exaggerated remarks about his confidence. You can see his words are boastful and sarcastic. Why? He is very overconfident. Well, another point that you can use to support your answer is the narration. What can you say about the narration? It's in the third person point of view. Man and his actions can be seen together. The narration, if you look into the poem very carefully, when you read the poem very carefully, you can identify the third person narration. There, you will understand both actions. Man, his actions, his words, everything you can see. And in the middle of the poem, the poet makes him ridiculed by the same contrast. Finally, you can support your answer adding this point. Sarcastic tone, humorous tone, ironical tone is maintained throughout the poem. We are going to look at another question. What is the point of view of the narration used in the poem? You can see the point of view of the narration used in the poem. Actually, the narrator is not the man whom is being described. Can you see that point? Can you identify that poem? Can you identify that point? The narrator is not the man who is being described. The person who is being described is in the third person narration. So, we call that the poem is in third person narration. We are going to look at another question. What does the phrase such tittle tattle means to you? Did you understand that? Tittle tattle. Tittle tattle usually referred to the stories of ghosts, and by the use of those words tittle tattle, the speaker gives a hint. Speaker hints that those stories are of common people and they are created without a firm base. Can you understand that point? Well, we are going to look at another question. Contrast the man's reactions to strange happenings in the haunted house with his beliefs. You are going to find the contrast, his actual reactions and the strange happenings in this haunted house, not forgetting his beliefs. You can see when you read the poem, you can notice when you read the poem, he draws the curtains. Although he is certain that the strange sounds are creations of his nervous mind. He knows strange sounds are creations of his nervous mind. Though he challenged his friends, he is nervous. Though he challenged his friends, he is nervous. But he draws the curtains. Definitely, he knows there is no one. He is quite sure that there is nobody at that place. But he shuts the doors and locks them. He challenged his friends' beliefs about ghosts. He wanted to be isolated in a haunted house. He did not believe in ghosts. But why did he shut the doors? Why did he lock the door? He shuts the doors, locks the doors. He finds strange sounds repeatedly. The one who challenged that he does not believe in ghosts finds strange sounds repeatedly. That's why he checks the doors and windows. According to his subconsciousness, he knows that there are no ghosts. But his actions, he finds strange sounds. It's very peculiar. Finally, the one who challenged his friends that there aren't ghosts, that he can spend the night in a haunted house, hides in a cupboard. And he finds the cupboard as the safest place, thinking that there is nothing to be scared of. How ironical, and you can understand his reactions to these strange happenings amidst his own beliefs. Well, I would like to draw your attention to another question. Mention briefly the qualities of the man described. Can you think? Very good. If you have got this answer, he is boastful. He used to boast. Another fact, arrogant. And you would have noted he is overconfident. These qualities you can see in this particular man when you read the poem very carefully. Another question that you can think of is, what features are used to create dramatic element in the narrative? I am 100% sure that you agree that you find a dramatic element in this narration. How do you support that answer? When you read the poem, you will understand the narrative is a mixture of description and dialogues. Two's Company, the particular poem is a description and dialogues. You get that mixture. And dialogues bring live and dramatic effect. Can you understand that point? Dialogues create a dramatic effect and it's lively. Another point, sequence of reactions, his reactions, one after the other, and the climax. The climax, of course, the man hides himself in a cupboard, not alone. The man who hides in a cupboard accompanies the ghost, unexpectedly heightens the dramatic effect. If you look at this, if you observe this poem, if you read this poem very carefully, you will get to know the unexpected climax heightens the dramatic effect. Well, let's look at another question. I hope through the questions you will have a better insight. These questions are for you to frame your answers. These are not specifically exact answers. You can comment according to the given poem, but think of certain facts given here. Can you remember the question? Does the poem reveal a sad story of a man? According to the caption which has been used as a preface at the very beginning. At the very beginning, I told you, you are going to read a sad story of a man. But is it really a sad story? If you are to look at this, the line directly says it's a story about a man who does not believe in ghosts. And it is identified as a sad story because you get an impression that something bad might happen to the man. Because at the beginning, the impression that you get is finally the person will be in a sad plight. By the end, it's cleared off that the experience the man undergoes at that haunted house shatters his arrogance and heroic mind into pieces. He was like a hero. He was arrogant. Adamantly, he refused to believe in ghosts. He challenged his friends, and now you can see he, after all, became a coward. He was scared. His actions support that, and you can see his boastfulness and condemning the beliefs of others are sarcastically highlighted. Therefore, you can tell it's a sad story for him. We call it a humorous story, but at the beginning, the poem highlights a sad story of a person, is clearly depicted in his actions. Well, you are going to focus on to another question. How do you relate the title which has been used ironically with the content of the poem? When you look at a question, remember, you are going to find the key points. You are going to relate the title and you are sure that it has been used ironical with the content of the poem. Therefore, you have to refer to the title. What is the title? Two's Company. According to the title or the subject, the poem, you expect two people and you wish to see how they keep company with. And gradually you get to know about the actions of the man. Curiosity and the suspense of the vision of a ghost is created by the poet. Therefore, you can see finally the poet makes the man to meet a ghost inside a cupboard. Can you relate the context and the title? Now you can understand the title becomes ironic. By the end, the meaning that the company of two people is changed into the company of the man and the ghost. Two's company. You actually imagine two people. Very ironical. The man who challenged with overconfidence finally meets a ghost in a cupboard. A man and a ghost. How ironical. Well, we are going to focus on to another question. How do you relate the poem to its theme humor? Explain this with reference to the language used. Actually, at this point, I prefer to give you some facts. You can see the theme is very helpful to understand certain human weaknesses. Human weakness is highlighted because the man rejected normal beliefs among his friends. And another point that we can discuss is quality of boastfulness is another fact that you can use to write your answer. Another fact that you can pay attention to is overestimation of people. Therefore, let's pay attention to the themes now. You can see weaknesses of people. Two's company highlight weaknesses of people, weaknesses of human beings. If somebody overestimates or is very overconfident, or if that person is boastful, they are not strong points, they are weaknesses. Finally, those weaknesses will not help such people to have a happy life. I told you boastfulness is not a good quality, and overconfidence is also not good at all. After all, weaknesses of human beings, boastfulness, overconfidence are certain themes discussed in this poem, Two's Company. Well, the poem is not merely about ghosts, but about weaknesses of man. How do you justify that question? Sometimes, some people believe that there are ghosts, some they don't. And if at once, if somebody challenges the belief that ghosts do not exist and laughing at others and find fault in their behavior, can be some facts that you can discuss under this. After all, when people challenge their own beliefs, sometimes maybe they are existing or non-existing. But in this context, Two's Company, the person has understood that he can find his destiny in a cupboard. Therefore, the boastfulness and overconfidence are certain points that made him into his sad plight. So, those are weaknesses. You can elaborate those points. Another question is, inner mind of the man is suggestive of his behavior. You can see, at first the man speaks boastfully as if he is certain that ghosts do not appear or exist. But the poet keenly brings tension and nervousness of the man, describing his reactions to the strange things happen in his surroundings. For example, clock stroke without a physical clock. He locks the door for safety. Well, shall we discuss another question? The poem is humorous due to characterization and the plot it reveals. The use of language expresses irony and humor. Discuss. Shall we discuss the answers? In the first verse, the man expresses his confidence over the others by laughing at others with sarcastic remarks as tut tut. And he is very sure of what he said, thinks that all the others are fools in being afraid of non-existing ghosts. But the ghostly atmosphere and loneliness seem to have frightened him. The ghostly atmosphere and loneliness seem to have frightened him and shaken his confidence. By the end of the poem, you will experience the man crawls into the cupboard to be safe from that non-existing ghost. So, this is the contrasting image of the overconfident man shown in the first verse. Another fact that we can discuss is the events of the plot flows bring a funny effect. Throughout the poem, you can find out. The climax that the man meets the ghost is very surprising and his words are comical. It's ironical that the company of two is a man who doesn't believe in ghosts meets the ghost. I think by now you have clearly understood the poem Two's Company. If you have missed anything, don't worry. Please log on to channel NIE on YouTube and do the reference. Until we meet again, take care, stay safe, goodbye.